The grocery store was unusually calm that afternoon. Sunlight streamed through the wide glass windows, casting golden reflections across the spotless, polished floor. Shelves were neatly arranged. The faint hum of refrigerators filled the air, and everything appeared ordinary. Almost too ordinary for what was about to happen. Near the dairy section stood two children, a brother and sister, looking strangely out of place in such a clean, comfortable setting. Their clothes were torn, shoes worn thin, hair a little tangled, and on their faces lingered an expression that only hardship could etch onto such young features. The little girl clutched a gallon of milk against her chest like it was something precious. Her brother, a few years older, rested a protective hand on her shoulder. They weren't lost. Just standing there, unsure, staring at the milk as if torn between keeping it and putting it back. They were orphans, too proud to beg, yet too desperate to make it on their own. If you still believe kindness exists, that strangers can change a life in a single moment. Please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Because what happened next inside that quiet supermarket will remind you that compassion often hides behind the toughest exteriors. Sometimes even behind leather jackets and tattoos. The boy's name was Evan, 7 years old. Small, serious, and standing with the quiet defiance of someone who's had to grow up too soon. His sister, Maisie, was 5, blue-eyed, gentle, and holding that milk like it was her mother's final wish. Their parents had died in a car crash a year earlier. Since then, they had been moved from one temporary shelter to another, until they ended up living in a worn-out trailer behind an old gas station. Most nights, dinner was nothing more than canned beans or stale bread. But that morning, Maisie had fallen ill, coughing all night, her lips pale. Evan believed milk might help her feel better. So he took her hand and led her to the store, promising they'd find a way to bring it home, even without money. They had only courage to spend. As they hesitated by the dairy aisle, 3 men entered from the far end. They looked rough, broad-shouldered, dressed in black leather vests bearing the Hells Angels emblem. The thud of their heavy boots echoed across the polished floor, and most shoppers stepped aside instinctively. Leading them was Rex, a man with tattoos running down his arms and a black bandana around his head. Behind him walked Cole and Maverick, both built like men no one wanted to cross. Rex stopped when he noticed the children. His brows drew together, not in anger, but curiosity. He crouched down so his eyes met theirs. The girl looked frightened. The boy didn't move. "Hey kid," Rex said, his voice gravelly but calm. "You lost." Evan shook his head. He swallowed, then spoke softly, his voice trembling. "No sir. But we don't have money for this milk. My sister's sick. Could you pay for it?" "I promise. We'll return the money when we grow up." For a moment, silence filled the aisle. The coolers hummed steadily. Rex looked at the milk, then at the boy's steady, hopeful eyes. Something inside him cracked. Maybe a memory of being small and hungry once, before life turned hard. He nodded slowly. "What's your name, kid?" "Evan," the boy whispered. Rex stood, still watching the two. Then, without another word, he gently took the milk from Maisie's hands and walked toward the counter. His crew followed, pulling out their wallets. Rex didn't just pay for the milk. He added bread, fruit, soup, cereal, and a box of cookies. When he came back, he handed the bag to Evan. The boy's lips trembled, his eyes wide. Maisie held the milk tighter. Rex placed a hand on Evan's shoulder and said quietly, "You don't owe me anything. Just grow up to be a good man. That's how you repay me." Evan nodded faintly. "We will." The bikers turned and walked away, but something about that little boy's bravery lingered. They sat on their bikes for a while outside, watching the children disappear down the sidewalk. The boy carrying the bag, the girl clutching her milk, both fading toward the edge of town. Days passed. Then weeks, but that image never left Rex's mind. He'd seen plenty in his life. Violence, betrayal, regret. But never a child who faced hunger with such quiet pride. One afternoon, he rode his Harley back to that same store and asked the cashier about the kids. The man said he'd seen them around. Always polite, never stealing. sometimes just standing by the shelves, looking. When Rex asked where they lived, the clerk pointed toward the abandoned gas station on the outskirts of town. When the bikers arrived, they saw the truth. The trailer was barely standing, rust creeping through its sides, a cracked window covered with plastic, the yard scattered with debris. Avon was outside, trying to fix a leak with an old bucket. Maisie sat on a wooden crate, coughing softly but smiling when she saw the bikes roll in. Rex walked over, his boots crunching over gravel. Evan looked up, startled. "We said we'd pay you back," he stammered. "We're saving bottles." Rex shook his head. "That's not why I'm here." He looked around. The broken door, the cold air, the two tired children. And turned to his brothers. "We're fixing this place." For the next few days, the roar of Harley engines became the sound of hope. Cole patched the roof and fixed the leaks. Maverick painted the trailer walls. Rex brought food and found a social worker who helped the kids enroll in school and a meal program. What began as a single act of kindness inside a supermarket became something much greater. A promise kept the other way around. When everything was done, Maisie ran up and hugged Rex's leg. Evan stood beside her, holding an envelope of crumpled coins. "We still owe you," he said shyly. Rex knelt, took the envelope, and tucked it into Evan's pocket. "Keep it," he said gently. "Use it to help someone else someday. That's how you pay me back." If this story touched your heart, if you believe kindness can come from the most unexpected souls, please like, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Your support helps stories like this reach more people who need a reminder that goodness is still alive. Before we end, tell us in the comments. What would you have done if you were in Rex's place? As the bikers rode off into the setting sun, the rumble of their engines faded into the distance, blending with the laughter of two small children, echoing through the cool evening air. And though the world outside carried on as usual, for that small corner of it, for that rusty trailer, those two young hearts, everything had changed forever. Because sometimes, kindness doesn't just buy a jug of milk. It buys back someone's faith in humanity.